Hey kiddos, sorry this is a little bit late. I want to take you through the first 26 lines. So why don't you get your book, make sure you have it open, and you can make some notes. And this will kind of perhaps give you a good kind of model to use as you make your way through all of book 1. Don't forget about those study questions on haiku. You're going to want to use those. They'll be incredibly helpful for you. So as I said in class, I think in every class, we don't get our first verb and we don't get the subject of the sentence until the 6th line. So if we were to rephrase this, it would read, "Sing, heavenly muse," or "Heavenly muse, sing, of man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste," and of course he's playing with the apple, "brought death into the world, and all our woe, with loss because we lost Eden, until one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat." And that reference is to Christ. Remember that Milton is a Puritan. And if you haven't read the intro in your book to Paradise Lost, you might want to do that before you start reading the rest of the poem. So, like a good classical epic, Milton is going to invoke his muse. And he's asking his heavenly muse, not the muse of the Greeks, not the muses of the Greeks, but the heavenly muse, which for Milton is going to be the Holy Spirit. And he really does expect the Holy Spirit to help him tell this story about man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree. So how evil and death entered the world. So he's asked the heavenly muse to help him sing of those things. And then what you get following the sing heavenly muse is a reference to who the heavenly muse is, right? So the heavenly muse who inspired the shepherd, on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai, that reference is to Moses, who first taught the chosen seed in the beginning how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. So the heavenly spirit who has inspired those that understand about God and God's commandments. And then there's a colon, notice, and another reference to, and make sure that you're reading your footnotes in your book, because your footnotes have lots of important information about that. But then the next reference is to Mount Zion, right? "If Zion's hill delight thee more, and Siloah's brook that flowed fast by the oracle of God." So again, he is just explaining to us who his heavenly muse is. So we're meant to understand that he's now talking about God and the Holy Spirit. And then he says, "I thence invoke thy aid to my adventurous song." Right? So here he's, again, invoking this heavenly muse and asking the heavenly muse to aid him in telling his adventurous song, which is the story of Paradise Lost and how evil entered the world. And then the next phrase that follows qualifies his song, his adventurous song, that with no middle flight intends to soar above the Aeonian mount. In other words, he doesn't intend to do something a little bit. He intends to, as your footnote tells you, surpass Homer and Virgil. He will soar above the Aeonian Mount. The Aeonian Mount is the place where in Greek mythology, the muses would live. And so he intends to soar above what they are capable of helping him do. And that is because his muse is not the Greek muses, but instead the Holy Spirit. So he says that his song will have no middle flight. It will soar above the Aeonian Mount and above what the Greeks, Homer and Virgil and the classics attempted to do. Because he says, and notice what I have in red here, that he attempts to pursue things unattempted, yet in prose or rhyme. So Milton really does understand that what he is trying to do is something that no one else has done before. No one has taken the story of the creation of man, right, this Genesis story, and fictionalized it and tried to really help man understand God and Satan and, what's going on in the story. So Milton says he will pursue things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme, and that is why his song will soar above the Aeonian Mount, because the topic he has chosen is more important, more universally significant than the topics of previous epics. Okay, and then the second sentence, so these first 26 lines are only 2 sentences long. The second sentence, right, we get the verb in the third line. So he's now asking for the Spirit, that's the heavenly Spirit, to instruct me, he says, for thou knowest. So he says, and chiefly thou, O Spirit, the Spirit that dost prefer before all temples the upright heart and pure. So the heavenly Spirit expects pure and upright hearts. He calls on that Spirit to instruct him. Instruct me. Why? Because thou, the Holy Spirit, knows about the story. So the Holy Spirit must speak through Milton so that Milton can tell this story. And then he goes on again to describe, notice the semicolon, to describe this Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, thou, from the first was present, and with mighty wings outspread, dove-like sat, brooding on the vast abyss, and made it pregnant. So the Holy Spirit, right, who took the vast abyss, that was the nothingness that was before the earth was created, sat on the edge of that abyss, and through God, right, the Holy Spirit, made the world pregnant, gave it life. And so he says, instruct me, Holy Spirit, because you were there at the beginning, and only you can help me tell this story. So then he asks, here's another verb, he asks the Holy Spirit to, what is in him dark, what in me is dark, illumine. So he says to the Holy Spirit, take what is dark within me, and by dark he means, remember Milton's blind, so, he's playing around a little bit with that, but what he means there by dark is what is not understood, what it is unable for him to understand. So what is dark in me, Holy Spirit, please illumine. He then says, what is low in me, raise and support. So that to the height of this great argument, the argument that is Paradise Lost, the argument that is the story, and then here's the kicker, right? This is it. This is what he intends to do. I may assert eternal providence with the use of the Holy Spirit helping him. And then the purpose of the great argument is to justify the ways of God to men. To justify the ways of God to men. That is Milton's purpose in writing Paradise Lost. I want you to know that line too. To justify the ways of God to men. Think about the lofty goal that is. He is asking the Holy Spirit to speak through him and help him understand God and why God made the decisions that he made so that he, Milton, can help mankind, understand the justice behind that, justify the ways of God to men. I mean, explain, help them understand, help them see the logic, right, in God's ways. So as he starts this great epic poem, that, he says, is his purpose. So the first 26 lines are full of lots of information, primarily, though, his statement of purpose and his invocation of the muse, and a very specific heavenly muse, right, that is the Holy Spirit. And so he spends a lot of lines simply describing the heavenly muse and the Holy Spirit so that we're very clear about who is going to inspire him. And that, of course, is absolutely necessary if he's going to intend to justify the ways of God for us, right? The only person then who could inspire him to do that, or the only thing that can inspire him to do that, is the Holy Spirit. So there you go. That's the first 26 lines. Now, as you continue to read, I want you to break it up this way. Use your study questions. Use the paragraphs. Milton does break the story into paragraphs, and you should note when a paragraph ends. it can get a little bit confusing with all of the quotation marks about who is saying what. So, use the study questions, use the periods and punctuation, and use the paragraph breaks to help you understand, right, different people who are speaking and it's different things are happening. I think you'll find that really, really useful. Okay, so let me get you started with the poem. All right, so look with me at line 27 then in the next paragraph. Another important epic convention, right, is that the stories of the epics have to begin in the middle of things, in medias res, right? So Milton has to get us really quickly to the middle of the story, and that's what the next paragraph's about. So what you're going to see is a brief reference to the creation of the world and to the Garden of Eden and the serpent there, and then to Satan's, who is called Lucifer in heaven, waging war against God. Pay attention to exactly why he wages war against God. And then his fall, along with all of the other angels who were with him against God, their fall into hell. So if you flip the page and you look at line 84, you see the quotation marks there. That is actually Satan speaking. So he speaks first in the poem. So he and all the other fallen angels are lying there on this like burning lake of fire, right? And they finally wake up, and they've been out of it for a while. And they finally wake up, and Satan looks around, and he sees Beelzebub, who's referenced in line 81. Beelzebub's going to be Satan's kind of right-hand man, much like Mephistopheles was in Dr. Faustus. And they're really going to be the ones talking to each other. So you just need to pay attention to when Satan is speaking and when Beelzebub is speaking. Satan gets the first words, right? So Satan he breaks the horrid silence and begins in line 84 with, if thou beest he. So he looks at Beelzebub and makes note of how Beelzebub has changed. So this fall has done quite a lot of damage to their outward appearance. And that's, of course, important. So he speaks all of the lines until the next paragraph, and then you're going to go back and forth as they have a conversation about where they are, what has happened, and where they are, and what they're going to do about it. All right, so use your study questions and trudge on through the poem and see if you can make some sense out of what's going on. Okay, and so if you're listening to this, good for you. I'm going to give you one section of Book 1 that you do not have to read. It's a kind of cataloging. So when you get to line 375 in Book 1, it reads, "And various idols through the heathen world." Okay, and then in the next little paragraph, our speaker says, "Say, Muse, their names, then known, who first, who last, roused from their slumber on the fiery couch at their great emperor's call." So Satan asks all the fallen angels to get up, and we're now asking the Muse to say all their names and who they are. You may skip that. That's a kind of cataloging then, right, of all the fallen angels. So you may skip from line 376 to line 521. Skip all of that section and start back up with "all these and more came flocking, but with looks downcast and damp." So you're just skipping the list of all of the fallen angels and getting back to what's happening after they all get up. So pick back up there and finish reading through the end of Book 1. You can skip those study questions too, and I'll hit a couple of the things that you've skipped in class. Good luck, work hard, and we'll talk about the poem next week.